Comparison is stealing your happiness, also in ways that you don't yet know about. With the rise of the internet and social media, comparison is at an overdrive, and never in the history of humankind has there been more comparing than it is today. And the interesting thing is that it affects everybody, even if you're successful. And I've spent a lot of time and effort trying to figure out a solution of how I could stop comparing myself so much and not let it steal away my happiness in life. I've spent a lot of time in my life comparing myself with others. It started in school when I was young, and I paired myself to the people and the peers around me. And then when the internet started to become really popular and social media was invented, I spent a lot of time on social media comparing myself to not only the people that were just slightly better than me in some arbitrary thing, but people who had crazy lives that I could never dream about before I could see it with my own eyes. And I started comparing myself with them, everything they had achieved and everything they had that I did not. And I was only like 15, 16 years old at this time, but I was spending a lot of time just looking at what everybody else had. I started to notice that it was stealing my happiness and joy. Comparison is a great mechanism that was evolved for humans when we lived in tribal society, where there were few people around us, and it was there to give you a pinch of pain when you were falling behind or you didn't meet the standards of the group. So you had to adjust your behavior to, don't be completely different with others. And it's been a good mechanism that has probably helped us very much throughout early human history. But I don't think the comparison mechanism was counting on social media and the internet and being able to see millions of people around the world every single day. Social media and the internet, it supercharged comparison because you're able to see people from all over the world doing everything and anything at any time you want. And it's also incentivizes us to show perfect moments of our imperfect lives. When you see a picture of Instagram or you're watching a video of someone that's nicely edited and a nice filter, and then you see this picture, you believe subconsciously that this is reality and this is their lives, because they're smiling and their hair is waving or they're surfing a blue ass water wave. You subconsciously think like they have all of this and look at me, and you're just actually sitting here in reality. But the crazy thing is that they are also actually just in reality, and the perfect moment that they are displaying doesn't even exist. And this loop is created where the more perfect the image or the more better it looks, the more attention it gets. And more people are then incentivized to create these artificial images and put them up, or artificial videos, or seem much better than they really are. And then we start, as we are consuming this information, to crave that unattainable standard or that unattainable life, and we start to work towards it, or we start to put ourselves down in the ways that we are to be more like that, when that actually doesn't even exist at all, and it's just a great big illusion. And that's why social media supercharges this comparison mechanism. And as our culture has moved on to being from in reality to being online, this comparison is everywhere. And if you spend a lot of time online, then you will do this a lot without even you knowing that you're doing it. As I said, I started to notice myself when I was comparing myself a lot. In the beginning, I only noticed it when I saw some guy on a private jet eating lobsters going to his private island, and I was sitting in my mother's basement and I was thinking what the hell am I doing in my life? Look at this guy, he's only 22 and he does all of this stuff. And that was the big moments. But I also noticed that I was doing it just in normal situations, scrolling and being on the internet. I was actually just seeing a lot of people that have slightly better than me, and I was comparing myself to also normal situations. And my brain was actually doing its job, trying to help me to meet the standards and not fall behind. But when I could see everyone on the entire planet, then that mechanism is kind of backfiring a little bit. And the interesting thing is that no one is safe from this comparison trap. So imagine someone who has a net worth of around, let's say, $10 million. He has worked his whole life and he has this net worth. He looks at his status and his money and he's proud of it. But then he sees some other guy who has a net worth of $50 million. And he looks at him and he thinks, I worked my whole life, I have $10 million, more money than, he doesn't think this, but it's more money than we could ever dream of, many of us. And this guy, he's 5 times more than me. I have 5 times less than that guy. How do I suck so much that I don't have as much as him? And that guy who has a $50 million net worth, he can look at some other guy or woman with a $500 million net worth and think, wow, do I suck? I've 10 times less than that guy. And this continues all the way to the top till you become the richest person in the world. And even though you are the richest person in the world, if you become the second best and you start comparing yourself to that. And even the richest guy, you can compare yourself to some other guy who has a 6-pack. And you can think like, I have all this money, but I don't have a 6-pack, so I suck. So the solution I figured out by spending a lot of time and effort on this was that to win this game of comparison, it is not to try to be super successful, even though that's something you can do for other reasons, but it is to not play the game at all. So how do we not play the game of comparison when it is an unique or innate mechanism that we have in us and is there to try to help us? How can we rid ourselves of this comparison mechanism? And here is where I would argue that you don't want to rid yourself of this, because you want it to function in the normal way that it was created and designed to be. But what you can do is to try to reduce it if you do a lot of comparing. And if you thinking like, I do a lot of comparing, try to look extra careful at yourself and actually start to notice if you're doing it without you noticing it yourself. But the first thing you can do is to reduce the amount of time you spend on social media and the internet. And this is obvious because if the social media and the internet supercharges comparison, then by reducing the time you spent on looking at other people's lives and comparing your life to their lives, then you will automatically compare yourself less. And the second thing you can do is to start to catch yourself when you're doing comparison. So if you are on social media or you're in real life and you compare yourself to others, say this sentence: comparison is the thief of joy. Use it as a mantra to remind you that when you're doing that comparison, it's actually stealing the joy of where you are right now and your own life. The third thing is to change your perspective from looking at other people's lives to start looking at your life, to stop looking at everything you don't have and start to look at everything you do have. And that is easy, you know. If you have 2 legs, you can start with that. Like, there are people out there who don't have legs. You can be happy for your legs. If you have a family, you have friends, start to find all the things that you're happy about. And by doing that, you will automatically turn away from looking at others because you're actually happy with who you are. And then the fourth thing is to embrace your uniqueness and know that you don't know anything about the people you're comparing yourself to. You're just seeing the facade or the thing that they are displaying, but you don't know how they are inside. You only know how you are inside, and you only know your journey. And if you are playing the game of life, you have a set of parameters that you were born with, and they may have advantages or disadvantages that you don't have. So you have to play your own game, and by embracing your uniqueness, by playing your own game, you don't have to compare yourself to others. And of course, you will not be able to rid yourself of comparison, but you can try to reduce it so you can start to focus on your own life and take control over your own life. Okay, that was the video. I'm Francis Drake. Goodbye.